Hi guys, my name is Blake. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my August wrap-up. In the month of August, I managed to read 4 books and I had 1 DNF. The first book I read was The Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames, and this is an adult fantasy novel where we are following a retired mercenary band. When they were younger, these guys used to be the best mercenary band in the land, but they have gone into retirement and these guys have gotten old and fat and kind of lazy. But one of their daughters is trapped in a city under siege, so they kind of get the band back together in an attempt to rescue her. I found this book to be incredibly humorous at times, and I also really liked the characters. There is that found family trope, and there is also that ragtag team coming together for the greater good trope, which I also love. Those are 2 of my favorites. And they definitely did well in this book for me. This was one of my favorite reads of the year, for sure. I was a little worried going into it because I didn't know how I would feel about the 80s rock and roll references, especially in a fantasy book. But it wasn't that bad. Don't get me wrong, I do love 80s rock music, but I wasn't sure if I would be able to pick up or get the references as well as some other people might. But don't worry, I got a couple of the references and I'm sure I missed a bunch, but it's not the point of the story. Like, you can still enjoy it even if you don't know anything about 80s rock music. The next book I read was Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard, and this is a YA epic fantasy novel. And in this book, an undead army comes from a different realm into this kingdom, and we are following a cast of multiple characters as they are kind of suffering and dealing with the repercussions of this army coming. We are following a queen, a pirate, a squire, an elder, which I guess is like a fae being in my mind, and we're also following an assassin, and many other characters are also in this book. And all of these characters are from different kingdoms, and we're watching the politics and the drama that unfolds from this army kind of emerging. And I thought it was really well done. The world building is insane. It is very, very dense. If you do not like a lot of world building, I don't think you will like this at all. I personally really enjoy world building, and I think that the author did a really great job with the characters and the politics and the different kingdoms. It was just, that part was really well done, I think. There are so many things about this book, though, that I think that people wouldn't like. It definitely feels like an adult fantasy. That's what I kept thinking while I was reading it, because it is so dense. The author really doesn't hold your hand at all. From the very beginning, the world is dumped on you. You're just kind of thrown into the action. You're thrown into the world. There are a lot of characters and names and places. We're being introduced to new characters all the way up to like the 80-85% mark of this book. So there's a lot of characters, a lot of politics. So for the first half, it is very slow. It's not boring, but it is very slow as the world is kind of being built up. There is very little being explained. Things get explained more at the end, but I do feel by that point some of the explanations are like too late. Like, there are a lot of things I had questions about from the very first like prologue of this book, that just never get answered. And even then, like, we get some answers, but they felt too late. I wish that they had been answered a little earlier. I do think that more things will be explained in later books. Honestly, for half of this book, I felt like I had no idea what was going on in some aspects. But I'm okay with that as long as it gets explained eventually. I thought the second half of this book was really good, though. The pacing was much better. There was more action. The characters get some more development. This is definitely a book with a large cast of characters, and by the end, I ended up really enjoying most of the characters. almost all of them, with the exception of one, the character Coraine. She is the daughter of a pirate queen. She was a strong character, but I didn't particularly like her. I just found her chapters to be boring in comparison to everyone else's. This book does have that found family trope and the ragtag team coming together for a greater purpose, which are two of my favorite tropes. I also really like that a lot of characters in this book are morally gray. You don't really know what their motivations are sometimes, and I think the villains were really well done. And I think this book is setting up for some interesting future villains as well. So I really enjoyed that aspect too. And I think the author did a really great job building this world because each kingdom was different. And I quite liked that. So I gave this 3 stars, but overall I enjoyed it. I think it was a good solid start to a fantasy series. Definitely looking forward to continuing after that ending. The next book I have is Odd and True by Kat Winters. And I gave this book 3 stars. I buddy read this with a friend. She and I were wanting to read something atmospheric for the coming spooky season. And I have very mixed feelings on this book. It wasn't at all what I was expecting. So we're following Odette and Trudchen, and they are descendants of monster hunters. And we are following their lives in a dual timeline, once when they are children and then now in the present day as adults. And this book doesn't really have any monster hunting in it, or monsters for that matter. It's very much a slower paced, character-driven book, which is not what I was expecting from the synopsis. I did like the relationship between the sisters and their devotion to one another. As someone with siblings, I greatly appreciate sibling relationships in stories. And I also really liked the author's writing style. It's very atmospheric. The first little bit, 100 pages or so, we weren't really enjoying it. We were like, yeah, this is fine. We're kind of lukewarm on it. But as the story progresses, you really get to see more of the backstory between these sisters and why they are the way that they are. I'll definitely be picking up something else by this author because I like the way that she writes. The next book I read was called A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I don't normally read mysteries very often, so I can't speak for how this book compares to other books in the genre, but I can tell you that I personally really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. In this book, we are following the great-great-grandchildren of the Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, and their names are Charlotte Holmes and James Watson. And they are in boarding school together, and someone on campus has been murdered, and they are being framed for this murder. So they kind of have to team up and help each other to clear their names. I really enjoyed these characters, especially James, and their relationship with each other. It starts out where they don't want anything to do with each other, but then they slowly develop this friendship. And it was really sweet to see their relationship on page. And I was surprised by that because it came up as like recommended for me by the library app. And I was looking for something to read and something shorter, and I was kind of in the mood for something for spooky season. So I just picked it up on a whim, and I didn't think I would like it. I love Sherlock Holmes stories, but I don't normally like Sherlock Holmes retellings because I feel like authors try to make the retelling characters too similar, and I don't think that you can ever make someone like Sherlock Holmes. But that's not what this author tried to do. James and Charlotte are not their great-great-grandfathers. They are different people. They do have certain similarities, but overall they are their own unique individuals, and I really appreciated that she didn't try to make them into the people that she was trying to make a retelling of. If that sentence even made sense. I don't think it did. The next book that I read was The Wolf by Leo Carew. And this was the July Shelf Space book club pick. And that's what I wanted to read it for, so I could watch the live show. It's been on my TBR for a really long time. And sadly, this was the one that I DNF'd. It just wasn't for me at all. I read to page 130, 135, about 28% of the book. And I was just bored out of my mind. I didn't care about the characters at all, especially the main character that we were following. I feel like there were a lot of things that just came too easily for him. Like, things just seemed to fall in his lap. He wasn't an interesting character to follow. I felt nothing for him. And I also felt like the writing style was really repetitive. Like, I don't know. That was my biggest hang up, was the writing style. It took me a while to get into it, and then I didn't like the character. But the concept is really interesting. The setup for this book is basically what would have happened if other humanoid beings had survived past the Ice Age. And this is about the different groups and their conflicts with each other. The author is an anthropologist, and I took some anthropology classes in school and really loved them. And the idea of mixing anthropology with fantasy sounds absolutely fascinating. So I was really excited to read this one, but it just didn't work out for me. Those are all the books that I read in August. Let me know which you read in August, or if you have read any of these, because I would love to chat about them. I hope that you're all staying safe and doing well, and I will see you again with another video soon. Bye!